A judge attacked in a Nevada courtroom.
Justice is blind, they said. But what if she was paid to look away? On May 8, 2025, at 4:47 a.m., federal agents surrounded a quiet residential street in Phoenix, Arizona. The target wasn't a cartel safe house. It wasn't a warehouse or a stash location. It was the home of a federal judge. Inside her garage, beneath the concrete, a tunnel stretched 2 miles into the desert, and at the other end, 127 missing persons cases, all closed, all signed by the same hand. This wasn't justice. This was the auction block wearing a robe. The revelation sent shockwaves through the nation. A judge sworn to uphold the law, instead enabling human trafficking. Victims vanished, cases dismissed, lives sold for bribes. The system corrupted from within. The investigation began 4 months earlier with a question no one wanted to ask. A young woman, 22 years old, casino cocktail server, vanished after her shift on January 14th. Her mother filed a missing persons report at 6 a.m. the next morning. By 6:47 a.m., the case was closed. Status: voluntary departure. No investigation, no interviews, no search. Just a signature: Judge Amina Osman. But here's what the FBI didn't know yet. She wasn't the first. In the past 18 months, 23 women had disappeared within a 5-mile radius of 3 casinos. All between ages 18 and 26. All employed in service positions. And all 23 cases closed within hours. Same signature, same status, same lie. Special Agent Marcus Chen sat in a fluorescent-lit office in Quantico, staring at a pattern that shouldn't exist. The statistical probability of 23 voluntary disappearances in one jurisdiction, all closed by the same judge, was 0.0000002%. This wasn't coincidence. This was a signature. And when the DEA cross-referenced those dates with seized CJNG communications, 3 letters appeared in encrypted messages: TGK. The gatekeeper. It started as a whisper in the intelligence community. Missing women reports piling up in Phoenix, but cases vanishing like smoke. Agent Chen dug deeper. He pulled court records, cross-checked with immigration data, cartel intercepts. Judge Osman, 48, appointed to the federal bench in 2018. Spotless record. Humanitarian awards for refugee work, but her rulings on trafficking cases? 98% dismissed on technicalities. Chen's team ran financials. Offshore accounts in the Caymans. 2.7 million wired over 18 months. Senders: shell companies linked to Cartel Jalisco, Nueva Generación. The casinos? Owned by CJNG fronts. Women lured with job offers, then trafficked through Osman's court cases, closed to cover the tracks. At 4:47 a.m. on May 8, 2025, agents surrounded Osman's Phoenix home. No sirens, just shadows moving in. They breached, found her in the study, shredding documents. You're under arrest for conspiracy, trafficking, and corruption. But the garage held the horror. A hidden door, concrete floor lifted, revealing a tunnel stretching 2 miles into the desert. At the end, a bunker. 27 women, chained, waiting for shipment. 127 missing cases closed by Osman. All leads to CJNG auctions. This wasn't justice. This was the system selling souls. The gatekeeper had fallen. At 2:15 p.m. on March 3rd, an FBI forensic accountant named Sarah Voss opened Judge Osman's financial records. What she found made her hands shake. $847,000 in wire transfers over 14 months, routed through 4 shell companies, all linked to casino procurement contracts. But Judge Osman had no business relationships with casinos. She had something better: jurisdiction over trafficking cases. The team built a timeline. The 12th of January 2024, young woman disappears near Desert Moon Casino. Case closed same day. The 13th of January 2024, wire transfer, $38,000. Source: Sonoran Hospitality LLC. The 8th of February 2024, another disappearance, another closure, another payment. The pattern repeated 19 times. But the real breakthrough came from an ICE raid in Nogales on March 29th. Agents seized a laptop from a cartel logistics coordinator. Inside, shipping schedules, routes, and a list of names under the heading Protección del Norte. Protection of the North. Judge Amina Osman's name was third on the list, and below it, a notation in Spanish, Puerta siempre abierta. The door is always open. On April 4th, surveillance teams positioned cameras on Judge Osman's home. For 3 weeks, they watched routine life, court appearances, grocery runs. But on April 23rd, at 11:43 p.m., a black SUV with no license plates pulled into her driveway. The garage door opened, the vehicle entered. 15 minutes later, it exited. The thermal imaging showed something else. The garage floor was warmer than the surrounding concrete by 4.7 degrees. Something was beneath it, something moving heat. At 3:50 a.m. on May 7th, ground-penetrating radar confirmed it. A tunnel, 8 feet wide, reinforced concrete walls, stretching southwest toward the Sonoran Desert. And at 4:03 a.m., the operational order was signed. 14 federal teams, 14 locations, one mission: tear down the gate. Sarah Voss didn't stop at the transfers. She traced the shell companies back to their origins. Sonoran Hospitality LLC, registered in Delaware, but owned by a holding company in Mexico City. Bank records showed outflows matching inflows to Osman's personal accounts. The casinos Desert Moon, Golden Sands, and Rio Vista were known CJNG money laundering fronts. Voss pulled gaming commission reports. All three had skyrocketing revenues, but minimal tax payments. Audits flagged, but cases dismissed. By whom? Judge Osman. The team expanded the scope. They subpoenaed Osman's court records. 287 trafficking cases in 18 months. Dismissal rate, 94%. National average, 27%. One case stood out. A 19-year-old Honduran woman arrested at Desert Moon for solicitation. Evidence solid. Eyewitnesses. Video. Osman dismissed on procedural error, missing timestamp on arrest report. That woman? Vanished 2 days later. Case closed as voluntary departure. Voss correlated disappearances with court dates. Perfect match. Women targeted at casinos, arrested on minor charges, cases dismissed, then abducted through the tunnel. The Nogales laptop yielded more. Emails to Osman. Next shipment ready. Ensure clearance. Decrypted files listed victims, names, ages, value assessments. One entry, female, 22, casino server, high value $40,000. CJNG sold them north. Sex trafficking rings in Vegas, labor camps in California farms, domestic servitude in affluent Phoenix homes. Surveillance intensified. Drones over Osman's property caught heat signatures under the garage ventilation from the tunnel. Ground-penetrating radar mapped it. 2 miles long, electrified, ventilated, with rail carts for transport. Built by cartel engineers, likely over years. The FBI coordinated with DEA. CJNG intercepts mentioned the gatekeeper Osman's code name. Payments for judicial services. Undercover buys at casinos confirmed. Women scouted by recruiters, lured with drinks, then vanished. One informant, a bartender, whispered, "They take the pretty ones. Judge fixes the rest." By May, evidence was overwhelming. Financial trails, communications, victim patterns. Operational order. Simultaneous raids on Osman's home, casinos, tunnel exit in the desert. 14 teams, SWAT, K, 9 units, human trafficking specialists. The gate would fall. Osman's empire unraveled thread by thread. Voss's discovery sparked a multi-agency task force. They interviewed casino staff under immunity, admitting to spotting victims for handlers. Border Patrol reports showed spikes in unaccompanied minors near Phoenix, funneled to casinos. Osman's emails, hacked via warrant, revealed direct cartel contacts. Dismiss case #4, 782, payment incoming. The tunnel's desert end? A abandoned warehouse, owned by a Osman-linked LLC. Radar scans showed activity, human heat signatures moving at night. Victims' families came forward after anonymous tips. 23 stories matched. Daughters missing after casino shifts. Cases closed fast. One mother, she called me crying, said men followed her. Next day, gone. Judge said she left willingly. The net tightened. Wiretaps caught Osman. Tunnel clear tonight. May 8th dawned. Teams positioned. The gatekeeper's reign ended. May 8th, 2025. 4:47 a.m. The sky was still black when the first Humvee rolled to a stop 3 houses down from Judge Osman's residence. No sirens, no lights. Just the low hum of diesel engines and the metallic click of rifle safeties disengaging. Agent Chen pressed his earpiece. All units, stand by. The street was silent. A dog barked once in the distance, then stopped. Somewhere, a sprinkler system activated with a mechanical hiss. At 4:51 a.m., Chen gave the signal. Execute. A battering ram swung once. The front door exploded inward with a crack that echoed through the neighborhood. Flashlights cut through darkness. Boots pounded hardwood floors. Federal agents. Search warrant. Judge Osman was in her bedroom, still in a silk robe, hands raised. Her face showed no surprise, no fear. Just calculation. She said nothing as they cuffed her, just stared at Agent Chen with eyes that had seen this moment coming for weeks. But the real target was the garage. At 4:58 a.m., a drill sergeant with a concrete saw knelt on the garage floor. The blade screamed as it bit into the surface. Sparks fountained in the dim light. 30 seconds later, the slab broke free, and beneath it, a steel hatch, industrial hinges, a keypad lock glowing red. The breaching charge was small, precise. A dull thump, and the hatch swung open, releasing a rush of stale, chemical-tinged air. Chen descended first, flashlight beam cutting through blackness, metal rungs slick with condensation. 20 feet down, his boots hit concrete. The tunnel stretched before him like a throat. At 5:12 a.m., the tactical teams advanced, weapons raised, infrared scopes painting the darkness green. The tunnel was wider than expected, reinforced with steel I-beams every 15 feet. Electrical conduits ran along the ceiling. Fluorescent fixtures currently dark-lined the walls. Someone had built this to last. At 5:27 a.m., they reached the first chamber. A storage room. 43 duffel bags stacked against the walls. Chen unzipped one. Plastic-wrapped bricks. White powder. He didn't need to test it to know. Cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamine. At least 800 kilograms. But in the second chamber, they found something worse. Mattresses on the floor. 12 of them. Empty water bottles. Food wrappers. And on the concrete wall, scratched in desperate handwriting. My name is Sofia Ramirez. They took me from the Starlight Casino. If you find this, tell my mother I fought. The date, the 2nd of March 2025. Agent Chen's jaw tightened. His voice came through the radio, steady but cold. We need forensics down here, now. At 5:41 a.m., the tunnel ended at another hatch. This one opened to a storage facility 2 miles away, registered to a shell company called Desert Star Logistics. And inside that facility, 3 white cargo vans, interior walls reinforced with soundproofing. The vans were empty, but the smell lingered. Sweat, fear, human desperation. Chen radioed back. Tunnel secure. Evidence intact. Send the forensics team. But as they cataloged the chamber, one agent found a loose panel in the wall. Behind it, a ledger. Handwritten. Names, dates, prices. Sofia Ramirez, 24. Acquired January 18. Sold February 3. $40,000. 127 entries. 127 lives. Chen stared at the book. This is bigger than we thought. Secondary teams moved simultaneously. At Desert Moon Casino, agents raided the manager's office. Found manifests for Employee Housing Code for trafficking quarters. Golden Sands. Security footage showing women herded into vans at night. Rio Vista, a safe with $280,000 in cash, bribes from CJNG. 14 arrests by dawn. Casino execs, handlers, drivers. Osman's home yielded more. Laptop with emails to cartel contacts, detailing case dismissals for payments. The gatekeeper's network crumbled. Victims' families notified. Some reunions joyful, others, closure for the lost. Osman, in holding, said nothing. Her calculation failed. The raid exposed the rot. Justice for sale, lives discarded. But the tunnel's echo remained a dark path built on betrayal. As dawn broke over Phoenix, the arrests began. At 6:02 a.m., DEA agents stormed a luxury condo in Scottsdale. The resident, Captain Miguel Serrano, Phoenix PD, 19 years of service. On his laptop, patrol schedules. Routes marked clear. Times when certain streets would be unmonitored. He had been the lookout. At 6:15 a.m., FBI teams surrounded a law office downtown. Attorney David Kress, public defender, had represented 14 trafficking defendants in the past 2 years. All received lenient plea deals. All walked within 6 months. He had been the fixer. At 6:33 a.m., ICE raided a casino procurement office. The manager, Linda Torres, 11 years at Desert Moon Casino. Her computer showed something damning: employment records, visa statuses, home addresses of over 200 female employees. She had been the recruiter. By 8 a.m., 31 people were in custody across 4 states, but the evidence kept expanding. Seized documents revealed a network that stretched from Phoenix to Tucson to Las Vegas, 3 casinos, 2 non-profits claiming to help trafficking victims, and 4 judges who had signed off on case dismissals over the past 3 years. But Judge Osman was different. She wasn't just closing cases. She was erasing people. Financial records showed the scale: $11.4 million laundered through casino contracts over 18 months. But the human cost was incalculable. Forensic teams found DNA evidence in the tunnel matching 7 missing women. All 7 cases had been closed by Judge Osman within 24 hours of their disappearances. And in her personal safe, opened at 9:47 a.m., agents found a leather-bound ledger. Pages of names, dates, amounts, each entry marked with a check mark or an X. The check marks meant payment received. The X's meant no one was coming to look. At 10:15 a.m., Arizona Governor Rebecca Hartman stood before cameras. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the weight. Today, we learned that the institutions we trust to protect us have been weaponized against the most vulnerable among us. This betrayal will not stand. Every case will be reviewed, every victim will be found, and justice, real justice, will be served. But for the families still searching, still hoping, still placing missing persons flyers on streetlights, those words felt hollow. Because the truth was undeniable. The gatekeeper had been inside the gate all along. 3 weeks after the raid, Sofia Ramirez's mother stood outside the federal courthouse in Phoenix. In her hands, a photograph of her daughter, smiling in a cocktail server uniform. Sofia had been found, alive, in a cartel safe house in Sinaloa, Mexico. She was one of 7 women recovered in the weeks following Judge Osman's arrest, but 16 others were still missing. Mrs. Ramirez looked directly into the news camera and said something that shattered every viewer who heard it. "I trusted the system to find my daughter. I trusted the police. I trusted the courts. And the person I trusted most was the one who sold her." Trust. That word again. We build societies on it. We raise children believing in it. We wear badges and robes as symbols of it. But what happens when trust becomes a transaction? When the protectors become the traffickers? When the gavel falls not for justice, but for profit? The investigation into Judge Amina Osman revealed something more horrifying than one corrupt official. It revealed a marketplace. Prosecutors who buried evidence, defense attorneys who coached clients to stay silent, police officers who altered reports, and judges who signed away lives with a stroke of a pen. The CJNG didn't infiltrate the justice system. They purchased it. By June 2025, the operation had expanded into 6 states, over 200 arrests, $47 million in seized assets, but more importantly, 23 women recovered. Alive. Not all stories end in rescue. Not all missing persons come home. But every single case, every single name scratched on a tunnel wall, every mother who refused to stop searching, every agent who followed the pattern when others said to look away matters. Because the alternative is silence. And silence is what they count on. So here's my question for you. If you're still watching, if you've made it this far, comment below. We do not look away. Because the algorithm buries stories like this. Stories about corruption, about betrayal, about the vulnerable being fed to predators by the very people sworn to protect them. Tap the like button so this reaches someone who needs to see it. Someone still searching for answers. Someone who refuses to believe that a signature on a piece of paper means their loved one is gone. And subscribe. Not for me, but because this story isn't over. Judge Osman's trial begins in September 2025. The tunnel has been sealed, but the network remains. There are other gatekeepers, other judges, other signatures. The war for integrity is not finished. Shield or silence, which side do you stand on? Because somewhere tonight, a mother is placing a missing persons flyer on a streetlight. A daughter is being told to trust the system. A judge is signing a document that will erase someone from existence. And the only thing that stops them is exposure. So we do not look away, we do not stay quiet, and we do not let them bury this. Justice was never blind. It was just paid to close its eyes. But no longer. Now let's move on to another campaign, an even bigger case. First, do no harm, they swore. But what if healing was never the plan? On September 17, 2025, at 5:23 a.m., DEA agents raided the executive office of Dr. Richard Castellano, medical director of HealthBridge Network, a chain of 47 urgent care clinics across Texas and New Mexico. Inside his desk drawer, 340,000 oxycodone pills, enough to kill a small city. But that wasn't the worst part. In his computer files, agents found something more chilling: patient profiles, ages, pain tolerance levels, insurance limits. And next to each name, a notation in red ink: high yield. This wasn't healthcare. This was a prescription assembly line for the Sinaloa cartel. The bust exposed a network prescribing millions of pills annually, fueling addiction epidemics. Patients turned into addicts. Scripts sold to cartel distributors. Castellano's empire crumbled in hours, but the damage lingered and shattered lives. The investigation began with a death that shouldn't have happened. On May 3, 2025, a 19-year-old college student named Daniel Reyes collapsed in a dorm room at the University of Texas. Cause of death: fentanyl-laced oxycodone. But Daniel had no history of drug abuse, no street connections, no criminal record. What he had was a sprained ankle from basketball practice and a prescription from HealthBridge Urgent Care. His mother, Maria Reyes, held up the pill bottle at a press conference 3 days later. Her voice cracked as she read the label: 30 milligram oxycodone. Take 1 to 2 tablets every 4 to 6 hours as needed. Prescribed by Dr. Richard Castellano. For a sprained ankle. But here's what the DEA discovered when they cross-referenced Daniel's case. In the past 14 months, 67 young adults had died of opioid overdoses in the Austin-El Paso corridor, all between ages 18 and 25, and 61 of them had filled prescriptions at HealthBridge clinics. Same network, same signature patterns, same deadly outcome. Special Agent Nicole Torres sat in a conference room in Houston, staring at prescription records that painted a horror story. HealthBridge clinics were writing 18,000 opioid prescriptions per month. That's 216,000 per year. The national average for a clinic that size? 4,200. This wasn't medical practice. This was industrial-scale drug trafficking with a DEA license. And when the DEA cross-referenced shipping manifests from Mexican border checkpoints, one name appeared on cartel communications intercepts: El Doctor. Dr. Richard Castellano wasn't just a medical director. He was the cartel's distribution network. The probe started quietly. Maria Reyes's press conference sparked tips. Parents called in: "My son got opioids for a headache, my daughter for period cramps, all from HealthBridge." Torres's team pulled records: 47 clinics across Texas and New Mexico. Patient volumes normal, but opioid scripts off the charts. Undercover visits confirmed. Doctors prescribing without exams, ignoring red flags like cash payments, multiple scripts. Castellano's personal finances: $7 million in offshore accounts, wired from Sinaloa-linked shells. Intercepts: El Doctor needs more product, shipped to El Paso Clinic. Pills pressed in Mexico, smuggled as medical supplies, distributed via clinics. 67 deaths traced directly, hundreds addicted. The hook: a doctor healing by day, poisoning by design. The revelation: the system let him. On September 17th, it ended. At 9:47 a.m. on June 12th, an FBI forensic accountant named Robert Chen opened Dr. Castellano's offshore banking records. What he found made his stomach turn. $23.7 million in wire transfers over 22 months, routed through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, Panama, and the British Virgin Islands. All linked to a single source: pharmaceutical distributors with cartel ties. The scheme was brilliantly simple. Step 1. HealthBridge clinics prescribe massive quantities of opioids to patients, real or fabricated. Step 2. Pills are legally purchased from distributors at wholesale prices. Step 3. 60% are dispensed to patients. 40% are diverted to cartel networks. Step 4. Profits are split. Castellano gets $380 per 1,000 pills. The cartel gets street value $40,000 per 1,000 pills. But the real breakthrough came from an undercover operation. On July 8th, DEA Special Agent Marcus Webb walked into a Healthbridge clinic in Laredo, Texas. He complained of back pain, no medical history, no MRI, no physical exam beyond a nurse checking his blood pressure. 7 minutes later, he walked out with a prescription for 90 oxycodone pills and 60 Xanax tablets. Total time with the doctor, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Agent Torres ran the numbers. If each clinic saw 40 patients per day like Marcus, and 70% received opioid prescriptions, that's 28 prescriptions daily. Multiply by 47 clinics, 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year, over 400,000 opioid prescriptions annually from one network. But on August 14th, a raid on a cartel stash house in Juarez, Mexico, revealed the smoking gun. 180,000 pills in pharmaceutical bottles, still labeled, still stamped with Healthbridge pharmacy stickers. The pills prescribed in Texas were being smuggled back into Mexico, repackaged, and sold on the street, completing a closed loop of legal manufacturing, illegal diversion, and cartel distribution. And every step was orchestrated by Dr. Richard Castellano. On August 29th, surveillance teams positioned cameras outside Castellano's mansion in Houston. For 2 weeks, they watched country club lunches, medical conferences, charity galas. But on September 9th at 11:04 p.m., a black Mercedes with Mexican plates pulled into his circular driveway. 2 men exited. One wore a suit. The other carried a duffel bag. They stayed 18 minutes. Thermal imaging showed the duffel bag entered the house full. It left empty. At 2:37 a.m. on September 15th, a confidential informant inside the Sinaloa cartel sent a message to the DEA. El Doctor is moving product Tuesday morning. 6 clinics, simultaneous pickups. And at 3:15 a.m., the operational order was signed. 47 federal teams, 47 Healthbridge locations. One target: shut down the White Coat cartel. The probe deepened from there. Robert Chen's discovery sparked a multi-agency task force. They subpoenaed prescription databases from all 47 clinics. Patterns emerged, patients cycling through, scripts renewed without follow-ups, diagnoses inflated to justify high doses. One clinic in El Paso issued 3,000 oxycodone prescriptions in a month, enough for every resident in a small town. Undercover ops multiplied. Agents posed as patients with minor ailments, headaches, toothaches, sprains. Every time, opioids flowed like water. Doctors barely glanced at charts. In Dallas, an agent recorded a nurse. Dr. C says prescribe heavy. Insurance pays, we all win. Win meaning kickbacks. Financial trails led to Sinaloa. Castellano's emails, obtained via warrant, showed direct contact with cartel chemists. Send purer batch. Patients complaining of weakness. The Juarez raid yielded manifests. Pills shipped south in medical supply crates, returned laced with fentanyl for higher potency. Castellano's mansion surveillance captured more meetings. Duffel bags exchanged weekly, cash for scripts. The informant, a low-level cartel courier, flipped after arrest, provided names. 6 clinics as primary diversion points. Pickups coordinated via encrypted app. DEA analysts mapped overdose spikes correlating with Healthbridge locations. Austin up 30%, El Paso 42%, after new clinics opened. Victim families came forward. Daniel Reyes's mother led a group. My son trusted his doctor. That trust killed him. By September, evidence was ironclad. 400,000 scripts, 80 million pills diverted, estimated 380 deaths. Castellano's empire, 47 clinics, 200 staff, 90 million in annual revenue, half from fraud. The order signed, teams mobilized, dawn raids to catch the network off guard. The White Coat cartel fell. September 17, 2025, 5:23 a.m. The sun hadn't yet broken over the Houston skyline when the first armored vehicle rolled to a stop outside Healthbridge corporate headquarters. No sirens, no warning. Just the low hum of diesel engines idling in the pre-dawn darkness. Agent Torres pressed her earpiece. All units, green light. At 5:26 a.m., the breaching charge detonated. A flash of white light, and the glass doors exploded inward in a shower of glittering fragments. Tactical teams poured through the opening like water through a broken dam. DEA, federal warrant, hands where we can see them. Inside the executive suite on the 7th floor, Dr. Richard Castellano sat at his mahogany desk, already dressed in a tailored suit. A cup of espresso steamed beside his laptop. He looked up as 6 agents burst through his door, weapons raised. His face showed no surprise, no panic, just a thin smile. I was wondering when you'd arrive. But the real operation was happening simultaneously across 2 states. At 5:28 a.m., DEA teams hit the Healthbridge Clinic in El Paso. The pharmacy vault door was open, someone had been there minutes earlier. On the counter, empty prescription bottles. Hundreds of them. And in the back room, agents found industrial pill counters, vacuum sealers, and shipping labels addressed to locations in Sinaloa, Durango, and Jalisco. At 5:31 a.m., agents stormed the Laredo location. The clinic manager, a nurse practitioner named Sandra Vega, was loading cardboard boxes into a white panel van. When she saw the federal badges, she dropped the box. Pills scattered across the asphalt like hailstones. 47,000 oxycodone tablets. 22,000 hydrocodone tablets, all prescribed in the past 72 hours. At 5:35 a.m., the Austin clinic became a crime scene. Agents found something that made seasoned investigators pause. A computer program that auto-generated patient profiles. Fake names. Fake addresses. Fake medical histories. Real DEA numbers. Real prescriptions. The AI had been writing prescriptions for people who didn't exist. At 5:44 a.m., Agent Torres descended into the basement of the Houston headquarters. The door required a keycard, a PIN code, and a fingerprint scan. Inside, a warehouse. Floor-to-ceiling shelves stocked with pharmaceutical bottles, oxycodone, fentanyl, morphine, hydromorphone. Enough controlled substances to supply a hospital for 3 years. But this wasn't a hospital, it was a distribution center. In the corner, she found shipping manifests. 340 deliveries in the past 6 months. Destination codes that matched known cartel routes. And at the bottom of each manifest, a signature. Dr. Richard Castellano, Medical Director. At 6:02 a.m., agents placed him in handcuffs. His $4,000 suit, his Rolex watch, his medical degree from Johns Hopkins hanging on the wall behind his desk. All of it. A costume. As they led him out, one young agent fresh out of the academy couldn't help but ask, "Why? You're a doctor. You took an oath." Castellano looked at him with cold, empty eyes. An oath doesn't pay for a yacht. The raids continued across the network. In San Antonio, agents breached a clinic at 5:37 a.m., finding thousands of pre-signed prescription pads, blank but stamped with Castellano's name. Staff confessed, "We fill them for cash patients, no questions." Dallas at 5:39, a secret room behind the exam area, packed with diverted pills ready for shipment. 2 nurses arrested, one admitting, "Doctor said it's for underserved communities." But the vans went south, not to patients. Albuquerque at 5:42. Clinic records showed phantom visits hundreds daily, no actual patients. Computers logged fake appointments, generating scripts for cartel runners posing as doctors. By 6:10:47, clinics secured. Total seizures, 340,000 pills from headquarters alone, plus 180,000 from sites. Cash, 2.1 million. Firearms, 17, hidden in safes. Castellano's phone, seized, held encrypted messages. Product ready, send to Juarez contact. The white coat cartel exposed. Clinics as fronts, prescriptions as currency, lives as collateral. Torres stood in the basement warehouse, surveying the shelves. This ends today. But the damage? Thousands addicted, hundreds dead, the oath broken, trust shattered. The raid was over, the reckoning began. As dawn broke over Texas, the arrests multiplied like dominoes falling. At 6:47 a.m., FBI agents raided a luxury penthouse in Dallas. The resident, Dr. Melissa Hartman, chief of pain management at Healthbridge. On her dining table, $340,000 in cash, still banded in cartel wrapping. She had been the medical supervisor who approved every fraudulent prescription. At 7:15 a.m., DEA teams surrounded a private airfield outside San Antonio. Pilot James Rickman, 14 years of charter experience, was prepping a Cessna. In the cargo hold, 12 coolers marked medical samples. Inside, 280,000 pills. He had been flying them to cartel landing strips in northern Mexico twice a week for 18 months. At 7:33 a.m., ICE raided a pharmaceutical distribution warehouse in El Paso. The owner, Marcus Chen, no relation to the FBI accountant, had been supplying HealthBridge with 5 times the legal allotment of opioids. His records showed payments of $50,000 per shipment. He had been the supplier who asked no questions. By 9 a.m., 73 people were in custody across 3 states, but the evidence kept expanding like a stain. Seized documents revealed a network that reached far beyond Texas. HealthBridge had partnered with 14 other urgent care chains in Arizona, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. The same prescription patterns, the same diversion schemes, the same cartel connections. But Dr. Castellano wasn't just running clinics. He had turned American healthcare into a narcotics pipeline. Financial forensics revealed the scale: $87 million in revenue over 22 months, but only $31 million came from legitimate patient care. The other $56 million? Cartel payments for diverted pills. And in Castellano's personal safe opened at 10:22 a.m., agents found a ledger that made Agent Torres's hands shake. Pages of names, DEA numbers, prescription quotas, each entry marked with a check mark or a red X. The check marks meant the doctor was compliant, writing prescriptions, asking no questions, taking their cut. The red X's meant they had refused, and 3 of those doctors were now dead. At 11:45 a.m., the Texas Attorney General stood before a wall of cameras. Her voice was firm, but her jaw was tight with barely contained rage. Today, we dismantled a criminal organization that hid behind white coats and medical degrees. They weaponized our trust in healthcare. They turned prescriptions into poison. And they profited from the deaths of our children. This ends now. But for families like Maria Reyes, standing in the back of that press conference, clutching a photo of her son Daniel, those words felt insufficient. Because the truth was brutal. The people sworn to heal had become the dealers. 4 weeks after the raid, Maria Reyes testified before Congress. In her hands, Daniel's prescription bottle and his autopsy report. She looked directly at the assembled senators and said something that silenced the room. "My son trusted his doctor. He thought a prescription meant it was safe. And that trust killed him." Trust. That word keeps appearing, doesn't it? We trust doctors because we have to. We trust prescriptions because they come from licensed professionals. We trust the system because the alternative, believing healthcare itself has been corrupted, is too terrifying to accept. But what happens when trust becomes a weapon? When white coats become cover for cartels? When the DEA license on the wall is just permission to deal drugs legally? The investigation into Dr. Richard Castellano revealed something more horrifying than one corrupt doctor. It revealed an industry vulnerable to exploitation. Pharmacists who filled prescriptions without questioning volume, insurance companies that paid claims without investigating patterns, medical boards that ignored red flags for years. The Sinaloa cartel didn't infiltrate American healthcare. They simply bought the keys and walked through the front door. By October 2025, the operation had expanded to 7 states, over 200 arrests, $127 million in seized assets, 47 clinics shut down permanently. But more importantly, 340,000 pills removed from circulation. That's 340,000 potential overdoses prevented. 340,000 lives that won't end like Daniel Reyes's. Dr. Castellano's trial is set for February 2026. He faces 847 counts of drug trafficking, conspiracy, and reckless homicide. If convicted on all counts, he'll spend the rest of his life in federal prison. His medical license was revoked on September 18, 2025, the same day Maria Reyes placed flowers at her son's grave. But here's what haunts Agent Torres late at night. For every Dr. Castellano they arrest, how many others are still operating? How many prescription pads are still being used as trafficking tools? How many patients are being turned into addicts by the very people they trust to heal them? So here's my question for you. If you're still watching, if this story matters to you, comment below. We do not look away. Because the algorithm buries investigations like this. Stories about white-collar drug trafficking, about corruption in healthcare, about the professionals we're taught to trust becoming the predators we're warned against. Tap the like button so this reaches someone who needs to see it. A parent whose child received a suspicious prescription. A patient who felt something was wrong. Someone who refuses to believe that a medical degree makes someone immune to greed. And subscribe, because this story isn't finished. You remember Judge Amina Osman from our last video? The federal judge who became the gatekeeper for cartel trafficking, who signed away missing persons cases with a stroke of a pen? Dr. Castellano supplied the pills that disappeared through her network, the same tunnels, the same shell companies, the same profit-sharing agreements. The corruption wasn't isolated, it was interconnected. There are other doctors, other clinics, other distribution networks, and every single one requires exposure to shut down. The war against corruption doesn't end at one arrest. Shield or silence, which side do you stand on? Because somewhere tonight, a teenager is taking the first oxycodone pill prescribed for a sports injury. A doctor is writing a prescription for someone who doesn't need it. A cartel coordinator is receiving a shipment of pharmaceutical-grade narcotics, all perfectly legal, all perfectly lethal. And the only thing that stops them is vigilance. So we do not look away, we do not trust blindly, and we do not let white coats become camouflage for criminals. First, do no harm. But when harm becomes the business model, we have a moral obligation to tear it down.